Hi, I'm Dr. Steve Elias, and welcome to the veinPODCAST. Respect the elders, embrace the new, and encourage the improbable and impractical without bias. Welcome, everybody, to another veinPODCAST. And actually, this veinPODCAST is a first for the veinPODCAST because we're going to be having members of industry to be our panelists instead of physicians. And all of our podcasts, as you well know, is sponsored by Radcliffe Vascular and distributed by them. But today, the topic is going to be how the pandemic has changed the paradigm, how we have changed in relationship to the pandemic regarding education and regarding training. We want to explore a little bit about what you all as industry went through, going through now, and what your thoughts are for the future. I want to introduce who we have, and we'll go by alphabetical order in terms of the companies that they represent. So AngioDynamics, Dan Herman is from AngioDynamics. Medtronic, Brad Mosley. Philips, Brian Dempsey. And Darren, if we either went by company or by last name, you would be last anyhow. Darren's from Tactile. It's Darren Wenin. So he's a W. You're always at the end of the line, at the end of the alphabet. And I really want to get some idea. Maybe, Brian, we could start with you. When you guys and Philips heard about this and was becoming obvious, like things are just not going to be the same, what was in the first week or so that you realized this? What was the company doing to reorganize and to say, what are we going to do here going forward?
Right.
Give me a sense of in the beginning.
Sure, absolutely. One of the first things came that Philips put out a statement saying, "Hey, it's safety first. You cannot go in to cover cases and be there without PPE." So they started to go through and the accounts, if they wanted us and needed us there, we're requiring that the accounts have the PPE as they're trying to acquire those safety, support us with our own PPE, and we're in the process of still acquiring that. One of the key things we did was is we have to take care of our patients. So they went and found a company that had an FDA approved interface, like a FaceTime type situation, but it was HIPAA compliant, so that we're able to use this format, this platform, so we can be on our computers looking at an IVA screen, looking at venograms right there. So we're helping and giving the data that the physicians need to treat these patients, because as we know, many of the COVID patients are developing DVTs. Right. That's been a big concern. So we've been still working, but working from home to the best of our ability. We're also doing, right.
I just want to start from in the beginning, what you first kind of did. You're talking about the PPEs and stuff. And
right.
Brad, what happened at Medtronic at first, if you can bring us back there?
Yeah, it feels like years ago, but it's only been a few months. So at the very beginning, the same with Brian, it was to understand the safety aspect of it. There was the external and the internal portion of that. So in terms of education and what we do, where we bring people together in groups, all those were canceled immediately, and then that was set aside. And then in terms of our customers and our physicians and treating the patients, that really depended on where they were at and what they were going through. From the superficial venous perspective, a lot of those cases were just, put aside. So really what we've continued to do was just kind of follow the science on what the guidance was from either the individual state health organizations or from the CDC, as we all learned this together and then made those decisions pretty quickly. Not our group, but Medtronic as a whole, obviously, is right in the middle of this with our ventilator productions and all that. So there was a lot of activity that was sent over to that side of the business in order to try to get those products where they're needed. For our group, it's really just kind of stepping back and making sure that, everyone was safe, and the decisions in terms of their individual practice was up to the physicians.
Yeah. And so now, Dan, I'll get to you in a second, but Darren, I mean, you make products that in general, many times are being used in the home.
Right.
Right? The Flexi Touch and stuff for lymphedema as well. And so how did you guys deal with it initially? I mean, if you're physically dealing with patients in the home, what did you do about that?
Yeah, so a little bit different from some of the other companies. Our sales reps they have a lot of patient contact in the home, not only for doing a demonstration and measurements for product fitting, but also for training on using the device after the patient receives it. So much like the other companies, having personal protective equipment was really important. But because we had been involved in direct patient contact, our reps had a supply of PPE at home, which was beneficial. I think maybe more importantly, in hindsight, we were fortunate that we started a disaster recovery plan several years ago. And so we were able to transition from face-to-face to virtual within a matter of 2 weeks. And at this point, all of our touch points with clinicians, with patients are all virtual, done via Zoom or FaceTime or other mechanisms. So that's been a savior for us anyways.
Yeah. No, that's good. So Dan, at Angio, what occurred initially? Who was directing the decisions and what were some of those decisions early on?
So, I mean, to echo everyone else's sentiment regarding that, obviously safety was incredibly important up front. Angio's two guiding principles for this were the safety of our employees and, of course, the safety and care for patients. So that message came straight from the top. And I think it's obviously impressive when you see companies react in that way. And then I would just say, Steve, we quickly rebounded and started thinking immediately how we could be providing value to our customers in a time where the gates are closed, right? How do we expedite the process so when they come back, they are ready to start treating quicker? So really, we started thinking about that very quickly, understanding the customer in this, venous therapies market, right? The superficial venous disease. We know it's an elective procedure. So we just started thinking, I think, creatively about how to help our customers help their patients now.
All right, so let me bring you back a little bit, because when this first started, clearly there were parts of the country that they didn't have any coronavirus. That was like, well, what's the big deal? And there were other parts of the country, where it was like, holy shit, things are really getting bad here. How, as companies, or as people that you're directing your reps and your specialists and stuff, was there a time when some of those people felt uncomfortable? A physician might say, I still want to do these cases. I still got to make my money. But you're getting to the point where it's like, hey, I'm really uncomfortable here now. I mean, who knows the patients I'm going in or this doctor I'm helping with? Is he okay? Or is patients okay? Staff okay? Did you guys, did you go through that? Did any of your reps or specialists voice any concerns? Like
I'll just answer from my perspective. We have, like I said, a lot of patient and physician contact, but it was interesting that from a company standpoint, like everyone else, I think everybody had safety of not only employees, but particularly of patients in mind. So it was a very, very quick decision for us within a span of 2 or 3 days from people starting to see, wow, this is really going to impact the nation. We made a quick decision and basically said, everyone work from home, start setting up virtual opportunities. And within another week, we were all on these electronic platforms. So,
yeah, no, but Darren, what I'm asking, and maybe it's not as much in your case because there's not cases that are being done that are being supported by your reps and stuff. But Brian, Dan, Brad, in other words, helping somebody in Nevada in the beginning of March, you're not that concerned that there's COVID floating around. Helping someone in New York City in the middle of March, your reps may have much more concern. So
correct.
I know
exactly. Yeah, that's exactly what happened. Oh, yeah, because I cover the whole country. And, my New York people, they've been locked down for the last 4 or 5 weeks because of, nothing was going on in the elective componentry. But somebody in El Paso, Texas, they're the business is not normal. But now that they're opening back up to be able to do elective procedures, the phone's ringing off the hook. But one of the key things that Philip said, and that our upper management told us, told our reps, if you do not feel comfortable, don't do it. Because we didn't know exactly at the beginning just how infectious this was. It's not the key that you were going to go to work and you had the right stuff, but what if you brought it home and gave it to your mom that lives with you or whatever? So those decisions became very impactful, that you had responsibilities to your families, that decisions had to be made of, okay, we need somebody to go. Who's going to go? And we had to really look at whether it could be handled virtually over the computer, or sometimes people went that had the least risk factors involved.
Yeah, that's tough. Brad, did you have any of these issues?
Yeah, not that I'm aware of, Steve. I mean, it all happened pretty quick. When the country started to do the stay at home, then Medtronic asked us all to stay at home, and we followed that. And quite frankly, I've been pretty impressed with the physicians. That they didn't want us coming in. They were making their own decisions. So, like everybody else, we had to learn to pivot pretty quickly. There's still education and information we need to get out there. But if we can do it virtually, we do. So we just kind of switched our courses that were supposed to be in person, and we just did them virtually. But I think as a whole, the physicians kind of led that, in that they didn't want to be exposing their staff and their other patients or themselves to that. So we just sort of followed along with that.
Well, all right, that was good. Dan, any concerns? Did any physicians say, I need somebody here, I really need somebody here?
So it's kind of hard to answer the question because there's no definitive answer. It was on a case-by-case basis. I think we were all just learning and handling this as it went. To your point, I'm here in the New York market, right? So when things shut down, they really did shut down, where there was some more discretion in other areas of the country. In a lot of cases, we're able to handle that kind of stuff virtually. But as you know, at least from the elective side of what we do here at Angio, the venous therapy stuff, for the most part, a lot of that was really kind of just shut down. But we're doing our best really to just be a service to our customers any way we can right now. But it's a challenge to all of us.
All right, so let's move to the next thing, which is really, has the pandemic and what we're learning now and what we will learn in a while as we go through this, clearly it's changed the way we're going to educate people now and going forward. So aside from everything going virtual, which we get at this point, everything's virtual. Nothing is in person. I'm sure everybody has, done their virtual courses, and we've done a lot of courses, et cetera, et cetera. But what are let's ask David from Radcliffe, because you do everything really online and you disseminate information. So David, where do you see companies like you either supporting or developing on your own educational paradigms, going forward?
Yeah, good question. Well, we've begun to do most of the things that we were doing in person, recording physicians at conferences or all the things that we would do in person, we brought in virtually. So webinars we were already doing, so we're doing more of those. The interviews we're doing like this, using Zoom, etc., and Skype, using the broadcast tool that we have with them, and roundtable discussions that we would do. Get the physicians in a room. We're now doing on the Zoom channel, and going forwards, we're going to start doing live courses where we have physicians broadcasting presentations in this format out to large audiences over a couple of days. So we really see it's an opportunity for us as a business because we've been doing this anyway. So it's just enabling us to accelerate that development of virtual meetings, virtual courses, webinars, interviews with physicians, etc., either live, recorded, or or a bit of both.
Yeah. So, Brad, what is? Give me one thing that you think we're going to take away from what we're experiencing now. That you got a 90% chance this is going to be something that's going to be incorporated going forward into the educational paradigm.
Well, I think what we're doing today is an example of that. I think we've all been talking about virtual for years, and now we just kind of sped that up and had to really start to look at how to re-engineer that. And we're trying to figure this out while it's going on as well. But I think from an education point of view, you've got to. It's not just putting your old content on a WebEx or on a Zoom meeting. We've got to understand, what can be delivered high quality virtually, and also not everyone learns the same way. So, how are people going to how are we going to assess the learning objective when we're doing something like this? There's portions of procedures that you can do virtually, but then there's some portions where, that whole hands-on piece where it's hard for me to simulate, holding someone's hand and moving the ultrasound probe, right? And so those are the things that we're continuing to look at. And, Medtronic as a whole, I mean, there's a big initiative going through as we look at different platforms and different ways of proctoring cases or being there virtually. But I think this is going to stick to a level where the didactic stuff, the stuff that used to be meetings where you're bringing 60 people into a room, if you can do it virtually, I think everyone's finding out that it works and it does have value.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. I think that's true. The didactic stuff, for sure. Brian, one thing is, aside from what Brad said, that you think we're going to take away and we're going to, put into our educational paradigm.
He said it perfectly. I mean, the virtual component, the ability to communicate in a live case with someone that is compliant within federal guidelines is key. I think what we've learned is that we're all, this is going to change everything. We're all going to have to learn what works best because it's never going back to the old way for a long time.
Yeah,
that's what we've learned. And we're still learning. And it's going to take people like David and his company that, this is going to give enhancements to virtual education that are going to just continue to build and build so that we're all going to have to learn how to do things differently.
Yeah. Let's go. So let me pose this to you. I mean, first of all, do any of you guys miss traveling that much?
I can't wait to be on a 3-hour call, ready? Well, a 3-hour plane ride with no phone.
That's the nice part. That's the nice part about it, right?
Yes, but to your point, the days of international business travel are probably done now that we've seen how effective a 1-hour Zoom conference can be with the whole work.
Right.
I just literally wrote a memo on how quickly projects are moving now that there isn't flying and there isn't, and people are at home and they're very focused. You have to realize you've eliminated all commute time.
Yeah.
Okay. So they're getting up, they're getting to work, they're getting things accomplished where you were meeting once a week. Now you're meeting twice a week and getting so much more accomplished because you've eliminated or minimized downtime.
Yeah, no, that I do. I think is very, very true. I mean, even for myself, I mean, we're working on meetings that we would be doing like at 9:00 at night when we'd be talking. Now it's during the day, and you're so focused, and you get your work done. But it's funny, all of you said you do miss traveling. Is that the raise of hands? So what is it, Darren, that you miss of the traveling?
Well,
I'm not saying you should or shouldn't. I just want to know what it is.
Right. So much like probably most of the people on the call, if not all the people on the call, being an extrovert, you derive energy from meeting people and seeing people. I've got my family around, and sometimes I see people on the street, but it's just not the same as either meeting new people or engaging in deeper conversation that you get personally. So for me, it's just that human component. It's something that I think all extroverts kind of need. So that's been the biggest challenge.
Yeah, it's. I agree. It's that personal thing. I mean, this moves me into one of my kind of pet feelings about what we're going to take away from this. The concept of, we alluded to this already with the didactic being an online thing and then something else not being. The concept of a hybrid meeting, the concept of shortening the time necessary to be at a meeting because a lot of the work has been done beforehand. And then the meeting, I think we need to figure out a way to cleverly intensify the personal interaction instead of it being spread over 4 to 5 days, being spread over 2 days. And some of the other work that needs to be done prior to that. You guys, scientific advisory board meeting, you add on to another meeting. Now you're adding another day to 2 days for people. So can't you have the scientific advisory board virtually and say, good, we're going to do our work now, and then we're going to go to the meeting and we're going to have, an hour or two, and we're just going to summarize and everybody meet.
Dr. Elias?
Yes.
I was just going to say that one of the things...
Darren, we're being recorded. You can actually call me Steve.
Steve. We've seen some things with the payers that I'm really interested to see how it plays out, the change to allowing physicians to bill standard codes, but use them via telemedicine. I mean, there's been existing telemedicine codes that have been very vague. They don't pay a whole lot. Not very interesting from an industry perspective. But I'm really curious to see how the payer relationship revolves around this new telemedicine. I know the Veterans Administration hospitals are now dictating more telemedicine to occur, not just because of COVID-19, but this will be something that they'll hang on to forever. I'm hoping that maintains itself in kind of CMS and commercial environments as well.
No, I think, and we're finding that here. They're a lot of them, they are paying for it. It's really not that much of an issue, and it probably will be something that's going to stick as well. And as the younger population gets older, more and more people will become more facile with this type of interaction. That we do have some people in their 80s who are okay with this, but in general, less percentage of those are into the telemedicine versus younger people. It's like, to them, it's the greatest thing in the world. Just what we said. It's a time saver. They don't have to take off, go to the doctor's office, wait in the doctor's office, the whole bit. Let's explore a little bit more, though, about the hybrid meeting concept. Dan, what are your thoughts about this hybrid?
Well, I mean, I couldn't agree. Just to Darren's point as well. I mean, clearly the current situation is challenge us as a company as well as our doctors and accounts to think differently about their business and kind of change that paradigm. I think we all have to just think more creatively about it. There's no doubt that the telemedicine concept, especially in the superficial venous market, where the paradigm of care, that treatment plan could have been as many as 5 to 6 visits for a patient. And the reality is that doctor was already struggling to find time, right? By doing this virtually now, they could potentially be doing that from home and, relieving or taking off 1 to 2 steps from their process. So, I said it to you, Steve, when we did talk, that necessity is the mother of invention. And there is certainly silver lining that has come from all of this and kind of taught us to work and think differently. And I just want to say, regarding the adoption of telemedicine in the older community, I think we are all impressed at how the adoption has been thus far. Sure, we expect the younger group to respond positively to this concept, but in general, the pulse that I'm getting from my physicians is that this has been a very quick uptick with their patients, and they're able to achieve a lot from home, which allows them that when they do get back in the office to move forward with save a potential week or two on that patient consult, qualifying the patient's need. All of that could be done right now.
Yeah, no, that's good. Liam, what is it? Can you help both the companies and patients with the concept of communication and being able to interact. Is there something that we are missing that you think we need to put into play that's going to allow a more natural or smoother interaction? I mean, we're the seven of us are sitting here now speaking, and we're looking at our screen and stuff, and it's working. But what do you see a company like you or other companies can offer to enhance that experience?
It's a
tough question, I know.
Yeah, thanks for giving that to me and not Dave.
Oh, you know, I didn't ask you any of the easy questions. I went to the hard question for you. And Brad, you're up next, so start thinking.
Yeah, that is a very hard question because, as has rightfully been pointed out, clinicians, they interact with different types of content. So our business, for instance, has gone from traditional sort of print text-based learning to doing a lot of video-based learning. But there's many different ways that people are engaging in education, and what we're seeing is basically the digital uptake of engagement with content is growing in a variety of different formats. So what we're doing here with a podcast, podcasts, the interaction with the podcast we're seeing is going through the roof. Videos engagement is going through the roof. But also, we can't go away from the fact that people are still going in and reading articles, but they are engaging in that content in different formats and on different platforms. So we're seeing engagement on social media channels, Twitter, LinkedIn, Facebook, Radcliffe on our own platforms. It's becoming, through the digitalization, there's increased access to content, but also democratization of that content as well, with different physicians commenting on it. So I think probably the next phase is how we bring that content all together and all that comment together and have some expert opinion on it. That's basically how I see it going.
All right. So Brad, what, let me ask you this. What do you think is the attention span seriously, because you want to limit the attention span of a physician that you as your company, you're trying to get across a particular point about using a product. What in general do you shoot for time wise? He's going to get it and he's going to be engaged for X number of minutes.
Yeah, I mean, it depends on the content, but anything between an hour and 2 hours, depending on what you're doing. And the engagement is really driven by the educator, right? So these are things that we've learned and things we have to concentrate on now is getting the educators to be more interactive, right, and getting them comfortable. It's hard to drive discussion. Some of the smaller meetings, it's hard to drive the discussion on Zoom unless you have some practice to it. But I think really, people, we've got to remember people are at home and there's things that are distracting them and whatnot. So you're not going to be able to get them heavy content for 2 hours and think they're going to remember it all. And also you have to have supplements to that. You can't just go in cold and think, okay, now my educational objective has been hit. There's got to be a follow-up on that, whether it be, some sort of PDF that you send them or digital aspect that you send them to follow up on that. So I don't think there's a one-size-fits-all, and that we have to look at kind of different channels of making sure that we get this information to them.
Brad, you're right. The engagement factor has changed with video. I mean, we've seen this in TV and movies, but if you're boring on screen, it's far too easy for somebody to tune out and try to multitask on other things, and they miss what you're trying to tell them.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. So just what is that song? Video killed the radio star.
The Google.
Right. So I think there are going to be people who are both on the company side and on the physician side going forward that are going to be more the right type of educator for this format versus standing up at a meeting and giving your PowerPoint talk. As we all see, Brad, you already said, and everybody's saying, the engagement part is very big. And just a little, semi-self promotion is all of you are supporting the meeting that we're doing in June, Expert Venous Management meeting, which is going to be all virtual and all interactive. And we hope and we think we've gotten the right people as faculty to be those kind of interactive people. And we'll see how it works. Brad, to your point, we're planning on 3 hours a day. Now, everybody may not hang on for those 3 hours, but the entire day is peppered with complete interaction. There's no lectures per se. There's just difficult case presentation and questions and answers. And that takes a lot more work to keep the audience engaged. And I think you guys are right. We need to think of, as we begin to educate from your company viewpoint and those of us running meetings, the two of us together need to understand there's a different way that people are going to look to learn now. And they're going to get bored if we just sit there being a talking head. Brian wants to say something.
Yeah, you look at Cush's presentation 2 weeks ago that you did at the VS. He's totally engaging. He was asking questions, right. And that's something in you that's going to be new with this Zoom format, that someone can ask a question live. Hey, Cush, you just said this. What did you mean? And what do you do next? That's different than the podium where everyone's waiting till the end. You do your didactic talk, and then someone's at the microphone. Yeah. Now you can, and what we found, and Bobby Mendez did a thing yesterday for us on Evar Tivar and his partner that was phenomenal, because they did it in small little segments. And they said, taught us this, questions, interaction. Yeah. Taught a little bit more, questions, interaction. And they were very engaging. Yeah. And that's, I think Brad's right, that it has to, and you're right, to where a Cush, a Makis, those guys are phenomenal presenters. Yeah, and do a great job, but it's going to be more interactive than just someone on a podium.
Exactly, and that's how that meeting, our meeting is going to be in June, and we'll see if it works. And talking about meetings, do we need that many meetings now? Do we need to have as many meetings as we've been having, or can we cut down on the number of meetings? And I want to divide it into societal meetings and privately run meetings, like, Expert Venous Management, Venous Symposium, International Vein Congress, Charing Cross. In other words, do you all feel that you would lose something if there would be less number of meetings? What's the downside to you if there are either less meetings or the meetings are shorter? Let's first talk about society meetings.
I guess the first thing that I'm curious to see how societies deal with is, one of the reasons that we go to these events is to have the trade show floor, and when something gets talked about, or two people make a connection and find out about your product, they can come over immediately and engage with somebody right there about what the product is and how it works, and get more information. That's going to be a challenge when you go to a virtual environment. Unless everyone goes to live chat and you've got enough people that can handle whatever volume comes in, it's going to be tough for physicians to get more information about some of the products and services that are being talked about.
Yeah, that's a good point. A very good point. Anybody else have ideas about society meetings? No?
Well, see, I think the societies are doing what a lot of us are doing. They're going to have to figure it out. So there's that commercial side of it that Darren just talked to, but there's also the science side of it, and that was the mechanism where we got our data out, right? And then it's also the mechanism that a lot of these physicians got their CME credits. So that's going to become an issue for everyone on, how are you going to replace that many credits that quickly? So I think the societies that have a heavy lift in understanding how they're going to drive engagement, get the right information out there. And again, they're going to have to do it in bite-sized chunks. So, you can't have a full a day of agenda like we used to on the podium, but you're going to have to do, small kind of focused disease state or procedural state topics, and if they're accredited or not, that's something that the societies will have to start to look at.
Yeah, they can be accredited, but I think you make a very good point. Someone can't go and spend 3 days and get a big chunk of CMEs. No one's listening for 3 days to people, talking. I mean, it's crazy. You can't do that. Dan, what do you see? To Darren's point, people want to get their hands on your product. And I agree, at a meeting, someone discusses either results using that product or discusses a technique using that product. And then you have your break and then people go seek out that product because they're excited. What can anything come to mind that, we can still have that experience for our physicians and for you guys as industry, quote, during a meeting?
So it's a great question. And I think, specifically for us with the very recent release of the SECURE trial, we'd love to have that kind of presence in front of everybody for our PVAC kits. So it's a good question. I think in terms of driving engagement for these meetings, at least what we're seeing is that when you move towards a roundtable, a peer-to-peer discussion, or at least salt and pepper those in, that's how you truly get everybody feeling involved and part of the process, as opposed to just listening to a lecture, which I think we're all in agreement with will be even more difficult via virtual. Mm-hmm. So I think it's just kind of changing how people are involved. And that doesn't mean that the presenter is not the thought leader of the process and sitting at the head of that roundtable, but driving interactive discussion through people of all different specialties, even within the same specialty, just different skill sets or different experience sets, I think has a lot of value in this new normal.
Right. I want to give you guys a little, and if you take my idea, that's fine, but engage me in some of these ideas as well. What I'm thinking of is from my product viewpoint is that, and we've done this with a few of you already. I've done a couple of different webinars, but the physicians are sitting in their own home. What I see going forward, once we can interact a little better, is your representatives gather a group of physicians in either one of the physicians' facilities or a hotel room or whatever. Somebody or a group of people speak about, as Brad, you said, a disease state or a particular procedure or whatever. And sitting with those physicians is your rep with the product on the table. So now the doctors have seen a presentation of the product or the device or whatever virtually, but yet they are sitting at a table with others that are interested as well, and they're looking at the product by your rep showing them. So that may be a nice way of doing both, of getting the data out there, but people not having to travel too far. They can travel locally and get into a group, and your reps can have direct personal communication with them. Let them see the product, get their hands on the product, et cetera. We're not doing that now when people are still stay at home, but once that goes down, that to me is one of the things I see in the future.
Stephen, I can tell you a funny story about when Tactile Medical started to do physician-to-physician educational events and dinners and the like. This is about 2 years ago. A rep in Waterloo, Iowa wanted to put on a program, and it was almost impossible for us to get the right key opinion leader speaker to Waterloo, Iowa. So we suggested doing it virtually, and there was tremendous pushback from a great amount of people. You can't do that. It's not going to be engaging. The clinician's not going to be able to get their point across. And lo and behold, it was actually very effective. So interestingly, I think this is showing most people that this type of event, or the type of event that you just mentioned, is not only doable, but it's actually very effective. And it would be impossible for us to get the likes of Dr. Peter Mortimer to come to a dinner. But if you can get them virtually, you can get some significant KOLs to present on some, I think, some pretty meaty topics.
Yeah. What do you guys think of this? One of these concept about this combined virtual lecture, but personally, your reps being in the room with your doctors?
I think it's a fantastic idea. I don't think, and I don't want to speak for anyone else in the industry, but we're all looking for new ways to be in front of our doctors and customers. And I think over the years, and it's not specific to us, it's just specific to industry, sometimes some of these in-person conferences aren't necessarily driving traffic, right? Like there's a difficult balance between the amount of lectures that you guys are part of on a daily basis and still getting out to see the vendors and go to the booths. So I think this new format is fantastic for industry. And I do think it's great for doctors as well. And even, I mean, I don't know how far we can go with that, but adding a question and answers portion to that, where the rep can basically field those questions, or product management field those questions, would be very exciting for us.
Are we going to save money? Is this cheaper in the long run, guys? Doing this rather than transporting physicians all over the place and you guys all over the place? Or not?
Absolutely.
Yeah. But I think that cost remains to be seen, right? Because I think what we'll see is we're going to do more things, right? Because we have to keep it more localized, more regionalized, and more focused, right? And then we also have to, as we move along, look at the technology and how we improve on that. So, it remains to be seen on it's certainly going to be cheaper and more efficient than sticking everyone on an airplane and sending them to, Philadelphia. But we'll still need to be doing a lot more of this, and we're going to have to take it in smaller bites, right? So I can't talk to a room of 300 anymore. I'm going to need to be talking to a room of 15 to 20.
I think the smaller bites idea from the delivery of the educational experience, the smaller bites of the number of people that you're trying to educate is really a concept that's going to be coming out of this. Lastly, I want to talk a little bit about how can we enhance live cases. We run a meeting that does like 6 different live cases, and I've done live cases for Brian's group and stuff, and obviously we can do it for others as well. But David, can you give us any idea? Have you been involved with filming live cases, and what are the things that we can do even better to enhance the experience when the doctor's not standing there now and may never wind up standing there?
Yeah, well, we actually had a physician today comment on live cases and how he thinks it should be better, because a lot of the time, most of the preparation's all done and the physician's just talking about, I've just prepped the patient, he's all ready to go, and here's the money shot kind of thing. And I think what people want to see is that real hands-on practical, how did I prep the patient? How did I, prepare the kit? Which assistants were involved in setting the case up? And I think people want to see that kind of thing. And we think cases will change to being much more practical.
Yeah,
that's the comment that we had anyway.
Yeah, just to jump in on that, Steve. The concept behind it is that you have multiple concurrent cases, and what you'd be doing is you'd be flipping between the concurrent cases to make sure that you're bringing people content that really matters over the course of, say, an hour or so of the broadcast. So that was it really.
Yeah, I mean, 3 cases in 3 different hospitals, and you'd take people to the most exciting, engaging part rather than them being bored at one point where there's not a lot going on.
Right, but I think there is value of seeing how things are set up. I mean, Brad, somebody's using the glue for an ablation. You don't just want to see, the axis has already been made, the catheter has already been put up, and now they're just extruding the glue, for instance, or and with laser or perforator. You don't just want to see the catheter in the perforator. You want to see how they set it up, who was holding what, and everything else. So I think it's important. Brian, obviously, with IVUS, it's not just putting the IVUS up; it's deciding where to go and all that kind of stuff.
I think the Livy course showed that we could do that from, you were able to say how the patient presented to you, and then all the way through and your post-procedural care. I think that we you and I talked about how to be able to do that, and I think we pulled it off quite well for our first go at it.
No, thank you. No, it was good. It worked. It did work out pretty well. And so we're going to plan on doing that course again. And clearly there's going to be courses like that. And then each industry, you guys will be running your own,
Yep.
specifically for your products. And, I think this has been a good experience. I wanted to kind of finish up in a little bit here. This discussion to see, this was very challenging in the beginning for all of us, but we're working it through. And like Brad said in the beginning, it sounds like it was only a few months ago, but it sounds like it was years ago. So we really condensed our learning curve very quickly. And going forward, we're going to learn much more. You guys have given some really good ideas from what industry needs, what industry can offer. And, I think some very good points about small bites. The educators need to be really the right type of personalities, and the program needs to be devised like that for the interaction. I think the reps have a big role when you do smaller things in terms of being with those doctors. David and Liam, you're set to do even more, because this is the way it's going. So this was the first of our industry all podcast. No doctors except for me, but I wasn't talking about industry. And I think you guys brought a really nice, different perspective. We will do more industry stuff going forward. And
thank you for giving us the opportunity.
Some of the ideas. But I want to thank you guys a lot. This was really nice.
Always a pleasure, Steve. Thank you.
Thanks, Steve.
Thank you. This was great.
The big key thing is, if we're not having in-person meetings, our livers will last longer.
Speaks for
The
yourself.
time that we're doing this one, if anybody's drinking at 11 o'clock in the morning in New York.
It's
all right.
Friday.
Well, we're closer to 5.
Yeah.
Well,
Okay,
right.
here I'm with David. See, it's 5 o'clock somewhere.
5 o'clock somewhere. Yeah, exactly.
Liam's ready. Look, he's licking his lips. He's ready for a pint.
Yes, that's the Irish in me, I suppose.
Aye, that.
Well, thanks for being part of the Vein podcast, and we'll do it again another time. All right, take care.
Great. Thanks, Steve.
Thanks.
Cheers.
Thanks,
Steve.
everybody. Nice to meet you all.
We hope you enjoyed today's Vein podcast in association with Radcliffe Vascular. We aim to bring you important topics from the vein world, either topics that we ourselves feel are important or you, our listeners, feel are important. So review us on your favorite podcast app or send your thoughts, comments, and questions to podcast@Radcliffe with an E-group.com. That's podcast@Radcliffe-group.com. You could also register to access newsletters, videos, and peer-reviewed journal articles. Thank you. Glad you listened. This is Dr. Steve Elias, and we'll see you on the next Vein podcast.